There is a message God has been holding for the chosen one, waiting for the exact moment when it could be received with full understanding. Some messages are meant for a particular season, and some can only be heard when the heart has been prepared for them. Today carries that kind of timing because what God wants to reveal is connected to tomorrow, to what tomorrow represents, and to the role the chosen one has played in bringing that moment into view. The final moment is tomorrow, not somewhere far down the road, not in a distant future that keeps moving farther away each time you reach for it. Tomorrow marks the end of a season that has stretched longer than you expected. A season filled with shaping, refining, and endurance. Through every challenge, every delay, and every hidden work, God has been leading toward this point, and His message is clear. The chosen one is the reason this chapter reaches its completion. That statement carries a deeper meaning than it may seem at first. God is not saying that an ending simply happened to arrive while the chosen one was nearby, nor is He suggesting that circumstances happened to align by chance. What He is saying is far more personal. The specific journey, the specific growth, and the faithful endurance of the chosen one hearing these words right now are all part of why this moment has arrived. When God says, "You are the reason," He is pointing directly to everything that was developed within you during this season. The waiting had purpose. The process had a destination, and the completion of that process was never meant to be determined by a date on a calendar or by events finally arranging themselves on the outside. It was always connected to who the chosen one was becoming through the journey itself. Every challenge carried something valuable. Every stretch of endurance was producing something deeper than what could be seen on the surface. Little by little, the formation was shaping a readiness that could only come through experience, patience, and growth. That readiness is here now. The work that needed to happen within the chosen one has reached completion, and tomorrow stands as a reflection of that reality. Many chosen ones spend years believing that the ending of a difficult season will arrive because something changes around them. They imagine a door opening, a circumstance shifting, or an obstacle finally moving out of the way. In that view, they become the recipient of the breakthrough, rather than the reason for it. Yet God is revealing something different. He is showing the chosen one that the greatest change was never outside of them. It was within them. The ending comes because the formation accomplished what it was sent to accomplish. The endurance produced what it was meant to produce. The person standing here now is not the same person who entered this season. The chosen one has become someone prepared, refined, and ready, and that readiness is what tomorrow represents. The ending is not happening to you. It is unfolding because of who you have become. That distinction matters because it changes how the chosen one steps into what comes next. Someone who believes an opportunity simply arrived may approach it cautiously, waiting to see what happens, but the chosen one who understands they are the reason this season is ending walks forward differently. They move with confidence, carrying the quiet certainty that what God is releasing tomorrow is the very thing He has been building within them all along. Tomorrow is more than the conclusion of a difficult chapter. It is the beginning of the chapter that everything before it was preparing you for. The formation season was never a place of endless waiting. It was a journey with a destination, and every lesson, every refinement, every deepening of character was leading toward that destination. Nothing was random. Nothing was wasted. Every part of the process was moving toward this arrival. When tomorrow comes, what opens will carry meaning, because it is connected to the entire path that brought you here. The doors, opportunities, alignments, and connections attached to this next season belong to the person the formation produced. The assignment and the formation fit together perfectly. The person you have become is the person this next chapter requires, and your readiness is what makes the opening possible. There are chosen ones who have quietly wondered whether they somehow delayed their own arrival. They have questioned whether they should have been stronger, more prepared, more faithful, or somehow different than they were. They have looked at the length of the process and wondered if they were the reason it took so long. If that has been your thought, hear this clearly. The formation was never about passing or failing. This season was not measuring your worth or evaluating your performance. It was producing something specific, and that kind of work requires time. The length of the process was determined by the depth of what was being created within you. What needed to be formed could not be rushed. It unfolded at the pace required for it to become complete. The formation lasted exactly as long as it needed to last, because what God was building within the chosen one required that time. Every stage had purpose. Every season contributed something essential. And now the work has reached its completion. Not because you finally proved yourself, but because the process itself has finished producing what it was always meant to produce. And now the work that was taking place beneath the surface has reached its completion. The formation has accomplished what it was sent to accomplish, and what was being shaped within the chosen one is ready to emerge. The reason tomorrow carries such significance is not because the chosen one finally discovered a missing piece or corrected some mistake that delayed the process. It is because the process itself has reached its intended destination, and what it has been producing is now ready to be revealed. The chosen one does not need to prove anything else before tomorrow arrives. There is no final test to pass, no last demonstration required to convince God that they are prepared. The readiness already exists. The formation is already complete, and tomorrow comes because of who the chosen one has become through the journey, not because of anything they still need to accomplish between now and then. I want to speak to the feeling that comes when tomorrow suddenly feels close enough to touch. The chosen one who has lived through a long season of preparation often experiences something complex when they hear that the waiting is almost over. The emotions are rarely simple. They move in layers, and God is present within every one of them. There is excitement in realizing that the season you have carried for so long is finally reaching its conclusion. The chosen one, who has remained faithful through uncertainty, begins to experience a different kind of hope. Earlier in the journey, hope often existed at a distance. It survived through trust, through faith, and through the belief that God was working even when there was little visible evidence of movement. The hope connected to tomorrow feels different. It carries the texture of something drawing near rather than something hidden, far beyond the horizon. It feels less like imagining what could be and more like sensing the first signs of what is already approaching. The atmosphere changes when a promise begins to move from possibility into reality. Yet alongside that excitement comes another awareness. The chosen one understands, at least in part, the significance of crossing into a new season. They understand that stepping beyond the formation season means embracing everything the journey has been preparing them for. There is a weight to that realization, and it naturally exists beside the anticipation. The chosen one who is ready often understands what being released truly means. They understand that arrival is not simply a reward, but an invitation into greater responsibility, deeper purpose, and fuller expression. That awareness can feel sobering even while the nearness of tomorrow brings joy. Both emotions belong in this moment, and both are understood by God. God is not asking the chosen one to celebrate while ignoring the seriousness of what lies ahead. He is present in the excitement, and he is present in the quiet weight of transition as well. He understands the full complexity of standing at a threshold, and his message remains steady. The same God who brought you here is the reason you are prepared for what comes next. Tomorrow also offers something else. It provides a new perspective on the entire journey. The chosen one has spent much of the formation season moving one step at a time, often without seeing where those steps were ultimately leading. In the middle of a process, vision is limited. You see what is directly in front of you, but the larger pattern remains hidden. That is the nature of faith during the long season. The chosen one continues moving forward without having access to the full picture. They trust what they cannot yet see, carrying hope through days that offer only fragments of understanding. The middle of the journey rarely reveals the meaning of the whole journey. When tomorrow arrives, the view begins to change. From the place of arrival, the chosen one will look back and begin to recognize what was happening beneath the surface all along. Connections that once seemed unrelated will suddenly fit together. Experiences that felt confusing in the moment will begin to reveal their purpose. The chosen one will see how specific hardships developed specific strengths. They will understand why certain seasons unfolded the way they did, and why particular lessons had to be learned in exactly the way they were learned. The deep refinements, the hidden growth, the clarifications that happened within the heart will all begin to make sense from a perspective that was unavailable before. Questions that once remained unanswered will gradually find their place within a larger story. The difficult days, the long stretches of waiting, the things that were removed, and the things that remained will all carry a meaning that was difficult to see while living through them. What becomes visible will confirm that God never lost sight of the destination, even when the chosen one could not yet see it. I also want to speak about what the chosen one already carries into tomorrow. The focus is not on what still needs to be developed, but on what has already been formed through the journey. These qualities are part of the reason tomorrow has arrived when it has. The chosen one carries discernment. Through years of navigating uncertainty, learning to listen beyond appearances, and following the quiet guidance of God, a deeper perception has been developed. The chosen one has learned to recognize what exists beneath the surface of situations, relationships, and circumstances. This discernment is not borrowed knowledge. It has been tested and strengthened through lived experience. The chosen one also carries steadiness. There is a unique strength that comes from surviving a long season of formation. It is the stability of someone who has faced pressure without losing themselves. The steadiness needed for the next season is not the steadiness of a person who has avoided hardship. It is the steadiness of someone who has walked through it and remained standing. The chosen one carries compassion as well. There is a depth of understanding that can only come from personally experiencing difficult seasons. Because the chosen one has lived through challenges from the inside rather than merely observing them from a distance, they are able to meet others with genuine empathy. That compassion will become one of the most meaningful gifts they bring into the season ahead. The chosen one carries faithfulness. Not the faithfulness that grows when everything is easy, but the faithfulness forged through persistence when no visible reward was present. It is the faithfulness that continued believing when evidence was scarce. The faithfulness that kept moving when progress seemed invisible. What was developed during the formation season is more than a character trait. It is a strength that we continue serving the chosen one in everything that follows. The same faithfulness that carried the chosen one through formation will carry them through assignment. Those who encounter the chosen one will recognize the presence of someone who has been tested, someone whose trust has been refined through experience, and someone who can be relied upon when the path becomes demanding. As tomorrow approaches, these qualities already exist within you, and they are part of what makes you ready for what is about to unfold. I want to speak now about the mind of the chosen one as tomorrow draws near, because the season that is opening will call upon the full measure of wisdom, clarity, and understanding that God has been cultivating from the very beginning. There is something the chosen one needs to understand about themselves as they stand this close to tomorrow. A long season of carrying weight can create the feeling that parts of you have grown distant, as though the pressure of everything you have endured has covered over abilities that once felt natural. Yet what God placed within the chosen one was never lost. It was never removed. The demands of the journey may have pressed heavily against it, but the original design remains intact beneath everything the season required you to carry. The long season may have narrowed your view of your own strength at times. It may have convinced you that exhaustion was limitation, or that survival was the fullest expression of who you are. But the chosen one is far more than what was visible during the hardest chapters. As tomorrow approaches, there is a quiet restoration taking place, a remembering of what has always been there, and a renewed awareness of the capacity God placed within you from the beginning. I want to speak to the chosen one about what it means to hear that you are the reason the final moment arrives tomorrow. There is a responsibility attached to that truth, but it is often misunderstood. Many people hear responsibility and immediately think of pressure, performance, or burden. That is not what God is saying here. When God says you are the reason, He is speaking the language of authority. He is reminding the chosen one that they are not standing at this threshold by accident. They arrived here because of what was formed within them, because of what they carried through the journey, and because of the person they became while enduring what others may never fully understand. Tomorrow is connected to who you have become. This realization creates a different kind of confidence. It is not arrogance, and it is not self-importance. It is the quiet assurance of someone who knows that the God who witnessed every step of the journey, every hidden struggle, every act of faithfulness, has already declared them ready. The chosen one does not need to convince God of anything. The season itself has already spoken. The chosen one who receives this truth approaches tomorrow differently. They stop standing at the edge questioning whether they belong there. They stop waiting for someone to grant permission to enter what God has already prepared. Instead, they step forward with calm certainty, understanding that their readiness is part of the reason the door exists before them now. There is also something important to understand about the ending that tomorrow represents. The word ending can sound final, as though something is coming to a complete stop. But for the chosen one, this ending carries a different meaning. It is the closing of one chapter and the opening of another. The long season of preparation is reaching completion. The waiting, the refining, the development, and the hidden work are arriving at their intended destination. Yet the journey itself continues. What ends tomorrow is not your story. What ends is the chapter that prepared you for what comes next. God has always worked through transitions. Every closed door has prepared the way for another opening. Every season of growth has led into a season of expression. Every chapter has carried you toward the next one. Tomorrow is not a stopping place. It is the point where the longest chapter gives way to the chapter it has been building toward all along. The chosen one who understands this experiences tomorrow differently. It becomes more than relief that a difficult season is over. It becomes recognition that the destination the difficult season was leading toward has finally come into view. That awareness changes how you engage with what is opening before you. Someone who sees tomorrow only as an escape from hardship may focus on resting from what was difficult. But the chosen one who understands the deeper meaning of arrival recognizes something greater. They understand that everything developed during the formation season is now available for the purpose it was created to serve. Tomorrow marks the completion of preparation and the beginning of expression. I also want to speak about the kind of faith that tomorrow requires. The faith that carried the chosen one through the formation season was a remarkable kind of faith. It was the faith that continues when evidence is limited. It was the faith that remains steady through long stretches of uncertainty. It was the faith that kept moving forward, even when the destination seemed far away. That kind of faith develops deep trust. It teaches endurance. It teaches perseverance. It teaches the chosen one how to remain anchored when circumstances offer little reassurance. And through the long season, that faith became part of who you are. Yet the faith required at the threshold of arrival carries a different texture. The challenge is no longer simply holding on through the distance. The challenge becomes stepping forward when the door begins to open. It becomes receiving what God has been preparing instead of only believing that it will come someday. The faith of the long middle is the faith that waits. The faith of tomorrow is the faith that enters. It is the faith that walks through what is opening, embraces what has been prepared, and accepts the reality of what God has been building toward all along. The chosen one is being invited into that transition now, moving from the posture of enduring the journey into the posture of inhabiting the very assignment the journey was designed to prepare them for. The chosen one who remained faithful through the long middle of the journey sometimes finds that stepping into arrival is its own kind of challenge. It is not because their faith is lacking. In many ways, it is because their faith has become so strong in one direction. They have spent so much time holding on, enduring and trusting through uncertainty. That perseverance itself has become the posture of their heart. When the moment finally comes to walk forward instead of simply endure, something inside must shift. The chosen one has grown familiar with waiting, familiar with carrying hope through seasons where very little seemed to move. But arrival asks for something different. It asks for the willingness to receive what has been promised and to step into what has already been prepared. That is why God is speaking about tomorrow now. He is preparing the chosen one before the moment arrives, so the transition can begin within them first. He is inviting them to move from the posture of surviving the journey into the posture of inhabiting its purpose. By the time tomorrow comes, the chosen one is meant to recognize that they are no longer standing at the edge of possibility. They are stepping into it. There is another dimension of tomorrow that the chosen one needs to understand. The journey was never only about personal breakthrough. It was never solely about fulfillment, vindication, or finally receiving what had been long awaited. The formation season was shaping a person, and that person was being prepared for something beyond themselves. The assignment connected to the chosen one has always involved other people. Hidden within every lesson, every refinement, and every season of endurance was preparation for the lives they would one day touch. The formation was creating someone capable of carrying what others would need when their paths finally crossed. Tomorrow is not only significant because of what changes for the chosen one, it is significant because it brings them closer to the people they were always meant to reach. There are people waiting on the other side of this transition, people searching for someone who understands what they have carried, someone who can speak with compassion because they have walked through similar valleys themselves. These are people who need more than advice. They need understanding. They need someone whose wisdom was earned through experience rather than observation. The chosen one carries that kind of understanding because they have lived through the very things that shaped it. That is part of why the formation mattered so deeply. The final moment arrives not only because the chosen one is ready, but because those they are meant to serve are ready as well. The depth of the journey, the length of the season, and the intensity of the refining were all connected to the person God was shaping them to become. The people waiting ahead require the exact person the formation produced. The chosen one who understands this steps into tomorrow differently. Their motivation becomes larger than personal success or personal relief. They begin to see the assignment through the lens of those they were called to help. They move forward carrying a deeper sense of purpose because they understand that the cost of the journey was connected to something greater than themselves. Before tomorrow arrives, however, there are certain things the chosen one must release. Long seasons leave traces behind. They leave patterns of thought and emotional habits that once served a purpose during the waiting, but no longer belong in the season of arrival. If carried forward unchanged, these remnants can make it difficult to fully inhabit what God is opening. One of those remnants is the residue of waiting. The chosen one learned patience in ways that few people ever do. They learned how to continue moving forward without visible evidence. They learned how to trust when confirmation was absent and how to endure when progress seemed hidden. Yet, after living that way for so long, a quiet hesitation can remain. Sometimes the heart becomes accustomed to expecting delay. Sometimes it becomes cautious about believing something is truly arriving because disappointment has visited before. The chosen one may find themselves holding back even when the door finally begins to open. God is speaking directly into that hesitation and saying that tomorrow is real. The arrival is real. What is opening is the very thing the formation has been preparing you for. The chosen one is being invited to move beyond uncertainty and into confidence. The season of cautious hope is giving way to a season of expectation. What once felt distant is drawing near, and the heart must begin adjusting to that reality. There is another residue that often remains after a long season, and that is the residue of disappointment. Most chosen ones can remember moments when they believed something was about to happen, only to watch it fade away. There were doors that seemed ready to open, but remained closed. There were timings that felt certain but passed without fulfillment. Experiences like these create a protective instinct. They teach the heart to lower its expectations in order to avoid pain. They encourage caution even when hope begins to rise. Yet God is calling the chosen one to release that residue as well. What is approaching now is not another repetition of what failed to happen before. The disappointments of the past were never the destination. They were moments along the road, not the place the road was leading. What arrives tomorrow is the fulfillment those earlier moments could only point toward. This opening carries a different weight because it is real, and the chosen one is being invited to receive it as such. There is one more effect of a long formation season that deserves to be named. Extended seasons of waiting have a way of quietly reducing a person's sense of what is possible. Not forever, and not in a way that cannot be restored, but slowly and almost unnoticed. The constant experience of hoping, waiting, and continuing forward without visible results can narrow the horizon of expectation. The chosen one may begin to imagine a future smaller than the one God originally placed within them. Their vision adapts to what they have repeatedly seen, rather than what they have repeatedly been promised. This is not weakness, and it is not a failure of faith. It is simply what happens when someone spends a long time walking through limited visibility. When the road ahead remains hidden for long stretches, the heart naturally learns to focus on what it can see. It begins measuring possibility through present circumstances rather than through the fullness of what God has spoken. And without realizing it, the horizon becomes smaller than the promise that first set the journey in motion. That narrowing served a purpose for a season. It protected the chosen one from carrying the full emotional distance between where they were and where they were being led. When the journey felt long and the path ahead remained hidden, that adjustment helped them continue moving forward, one step at a time. Yet every form of protection carries a cost, and in this case the cost was a smaller vision of what was truly possible. Tomorrow begins the undoing of that limitation. What God is opening for the chosen one is not measured by the reduced expectations that developed during the waiting season. It is measured by the original vision, by the fullness of what was placed inside them from the very beginning, and by the purpose that existed long before the weight of the journey made the horizon appear smaller. The chosen one may discover that what opens is greater than what they allowed themselves to expect. Not because God suddenly changed his mind, but because the season of limited visibility made it difficult to see the full picture. The arrival may feel larger than anticipated, yet it is not something foreign or unexpected in the deepest sense. It is the restoration of what was always intended. What unfolds tomorrow is the experience of seeing with greater clarity. It is the moment when the chosen one begins to recognize that God never lost sight of the complete vision, even during the seasons when only fragments were visible. The picture was always whole from his perspective. Tomorrow simply begins revealing more of it. I also want to speak about the nature of the assignment that begins with this next season. The details will unfold in their own time, and each chosen one will experience that unfolding differently. But there is something important to understand about the character of the assignment itself. The assignment is not built around appearance, recognition, or outward display. It is built around impact. Not the kind of impact that seeks attention, but the kind that reaches deeply into the lives of others and leaves lasting change behind. The influence the chosen one carries was never designed to impress people for a moment. It was designed to touch something deeper within them. The chosen one was formed for transformation rather than performance. Surface impressions fade quickly, but genuine transformation continues working long after a moment has passed. The long season developed qualities that operate beneath appearances, qualities capable of reaching people at the level where lasting change begins. What God produced through the formation season is real. It was forged through experience, tested through endurance, and strengthened through faithfulness. Because it is real, it carries its own weight and its own influence. The chosen one does not need to manufacture impact. They simply need to bring their fully formed self into the places God opens before them. The people who are meant to encounter the chosen one will recognize something authentic when they do. Not because of perfect words or flawless execution, but because genuine formation creates a presence that cannot be imitated. The work accomplished in secret naturally reveals itself when the time comes for it to be expressed. There is also something sacred about the actual moment of crossing into tomorrow. The first step into what is opening deserves more than casual attention. It deserves awareness. It deserves recognition. It deserves to be received for what it truly is. The Chosen One has spent an entire season moving toward this threshold. Every lesson, every refinement, every act of endurance has been leading here. When the moment arrives, it is important to pause long enough to acknowledge its significance, to recognize in the depths of your spirit that you are stepping into the very thing the journey has been preparing you for. The way the Chosen One inhabits that first moment matters. When you consciously recognize the crossing, you enter the new season with intention and clarity. You carry the awareness of where you have been, what has been formed within you, and why this transition matters. That awareness shapes the way you walk forward from the very beginning. God is speaking about tomorrow ahead of time, because He wants the Chosen One prepared for its significance. He wants them ready to receive the moment rather than rush past it, ready to recognize the opening for what it is, ready to stand in that first step with the understanding that they have arrived at a destination the formation season was always leading toward. When tomorrow comes, step into it fully. Let yourself feel the reality of the crossing. Allow it to settle deep within you as the conclusion of one chapter and the beginning of another. The long season deserves a conscious ending, and the new season deserves a conscious beginning. There is also something powerful in the word tomorrow itself. God could have spoken in broader terms. He could have said that the time was approaching or that the season was near. Yet, there is a unique grace in the specificity of tomorrow because it brings the promise close enough to hold in your heart. Tomorrow feels different from a distant someday. It exists within reach. It can be imagined. It can be anticipated. It allows the Chosen One to relate to the promise as something near rather than something indefinitely postponed. And that nearness carries a gift. It asks for one more night of faith, not another year, not another long season of uncertainty. Just tonight. Just the space between where you are now and the morning that follows. The Chosen One has already proven they can endure long seasons. They have already carried faith through difficult nights and extended stretches of waiting. Compared to everything that came before, tonight is not the mountain. Tonight is simply the final step before the horizon begins to change. That is why God says, hold on for tonight. There is grace in reducing the journey to its simplest form. One night, one final evening before the turning of the page. The hardest part has already been carried. The longest nights are behind you. Tonight is the final night of the long season, and tomorrow is the day. Now let these truths settle deeply within the Chosen One. Let them become more than words. Let them become the foundation from which you step into what comes next. The final moment is tomorrow, not someday in the distant future, not after you become more qualified, and not after you reach a higher standard than the one you have already reached through the journey. Tomorrow has been named, tomorrow has been prepared, and the Chosen One can receive it. You are the reason this season reaches its conclusion, not because circumstances finally cooperate, but because of who you have become through everything you have endured. The readiness is already present within you. The formation has completed its work. The assignment that opens tomorrow does not require a different person. It requires the person you already are. What the assignment needs is exactly what the formation produced. When the Chosen One steps through tomorrow, they step through as someone prepared, refined, and authorized by the journey itself. They step through as the person they were being shaped to become all along. I want to speak now to the Chosen One about the interior of tonight, because tonight stands on the edge of the final moment. The way you inhabit this evening carries a significance of its own, and the way the Chosen One spends tonight matters more than they may realize. This is the evening before the arrival. the quiet space between the long season and the beginning of what comes next. Because of that, there is a specific invitation being extended to the chosen one tonight. It is not an invitation into anxiety, overthinking, or one last attempt to prove that they are ready. It is an invitation into rest, a deep rest that comes from recognizing that God has already completed the work that needed to be completed. The preparation is not happening tonight. The preparation has been happening through every day of the formation season, through every difficult decision, every act of endurance, every moment of faith, and every prayer that seemed to disappear into silence. The preparation is already complete. The chosen one does not need to spend this night wondering whether they have done enough. They do not need to search for one final improvement or one final sign that they qualify for what is coming. The work has already been done. What God intended to form through the long season has been formed, and what He intended to prepare has been prepared. There is also an invitation to gratitude, not only gratitude for what is coming, but gratitude for what the journey itself produced. The chosen one who can sit with the full story of the formation season, including the difficult chapters, and recognize the value hidden within them, enters tomorrow carrying something precious. They carry peace. That peace is different from relief. It is the settled confidence of someone who has accepted who they have become through the journey. It is the calm assurance of someone who understands that the process was meaningful and that nothing was wasted. The chosen one who rests in that understanding wakes up differently. They wake up ready. Tonight is an invitation into that peace, and tomorrow is the day. The chosen one who has carried faith through the long formation season is about to discover why the waiting mattered. Not only through the visible changes that begin to appear, but through something even deeper. There comes a moment when the entire journey begins to make sense in a way it never could while you were still living through it. The formation was never simply creating outcomes. It was creating a person, a specific person prepared for a specific purpose. And when the assignment begins to unfold, the chosen one will witness something extraordinary. They will see the person the journey produced stepping into the purpose the journey was preparing them for all along. God never promised that every part of the journey would feel rewarding while it was happening. There were days when the purpose felt distant, and there were seasons when the meaning seemed hidden. But God always promised that the process itself carried purpose. Tomorrow begins revealing that larger picture. The chosen one will start to recognize that things were moving even during the seasons that appeared still. What was taking shape behind the scenes will begin appearing in ways that can finally be seen. What seemed delayed will reveal itself as preparation. What seemed hidden will begin stepping into the light. Doors that have been positioned will begin to open. Connections that have been quietly forming will begin to appear. Opportunities that were being arranged beyond your sight will begin moving into view. And as those things emerge, they will confirm what faith has been holding on to through every difficult season. God was working the entire time. Before tomorrow arrives, there is one final truth that the chosen one needs to hear. You were built for this, not in a vague or general sense, but in a deeply personal one. The calling that was placed within you, the formation that shaped you through every season, and the assignment that now stands before you are all connected. They are parts of the same story. They are expressions of the same intention that has been unfolding throughout your entire journey. The call, the formation, and the assignment were never separate chapters competing for attention. They have always been moving together toward this moment. What began as a seed of purpose grew through the refining process, and now that purpose is ready to be expressed in a fuller way. When God says that the chosen one is the reason the final moment arrives tomorrow, He is speaking about the person He has been shaping all along. The journey was connected to you because you were the one being formed through it. You were the one being prepared. You were the one being repaired. You were the one being refined into the person this next chapter requires. He chose you. He shaped you. And now He is releasing you into what He has been preparing from the beginning. So step into tomorrow with confidence. Not the confidence that comes from performance, and not the confidence that comes from self-promotion. Step forward with the quiet authority of someone who knows they have been carried through every stage of the journey by the same God who called them in the first place. The God who walked beside you through every difficult day is the same God standing at the threshold of tomorrow. The same God who strengthened you when you felt weak, guided you when you could not see ahead, and remained faithful when the road seemed long, is now saying, "This is what I prepared you for. Go forward, chosen one. Step through the doorway without fear. Step through with gratitude. Step through with the understanding that tomorrow belongs to the season that has been waiting for your arrival." God sees you. God is with you, and God is the reason you are ready.